Debbie, 65, tells People that after Mel Owens booted her off the popular dating show in the final rose ceremony before the finals, she wondered whether her fragility was the reason. But now that she's back with him and the women for the tell-all, Debbie claims she understands Mel's prior relationships better. A roller coaster of emotions is what she describes it as. She says, "I am thrilled to meet these ladies. I almost burst into tears. It was like being teenagers all over again when we saw each other. It made us really delighted. Simply put, I was over the moon. I had mixed emotions about seeing Mel again, but it was nice to see him again. Looking back, that was challenging." Debbie brought Mel, who was 66 years old, on their last date to Denver's Red Rocks Park, where she told him she had decided against getting married and starting a family. One of the causes was the painful end to her last relationship 14 years earlier, when her ex-boyfriend committed suicide not long after they broke up. "I was concerned that the talk I had with Mel at Red Rocks might have prompted him to send me home, or maybe he was just disappointed that I'm single," Debbie confesses. "However, I have resolved that matter, and I trust him. In my opinion, those were not the driving factors. This is due to the fact that his relationships with the other two ladies were more profound. Judging by the shows, it's evident that he had a stronger bond with these other ladies," she chimes in. "Despite the fact that, while I was involved, I believed it was just the two of us. You are well aware that he has other feelings. However, I gained insight after watching it." Debbie went so far as to ask Mel during the tell-all if her decision to remain childless and single affected his decision to delete her. Mel denied the accusation. "The thought never even occurred to him," he stated. "The thought never crossed my mind at all." However, Debbie admits that it was difficult for her to share such a sad portion of her life with Mel, especially on camera, just before they had to abruptly say goodbye. She would tell people to take things easy in relationships and dating if she could provide any bit of advice. "My recommendation would be to hold back on disclosing too much personal information at the beginning, whether it's about an ex-boyfriend or anything else you've been through that has been tough or challenging," she advises. "In my opinion, the first month should be more enjoyable and inquisitive because you're both getting to know each other. Don't expose so much vulnerability right away, because maybe you're going to get hurt easier if you've exposed too much of your heart," explains her. "Keep it close to your vest and make them work a bit harder for it. It's perhaps the wisest piece of advice." After allowing herself time to reflect on her emotions and revisit her history through the play, Debbie is now prepared to move on. She claims, "I couldn't help but get emotional while seeing her story unfold on television. My hometown held a particular place in my heart. Going from that high to returning home was tough, especially because I hadn't brought somebody home in 15 years and we had such a wonderful connection. But I'm feeling fantastic at the moment. I'm pleased with myself for stepping out of my comfort zone and enduring this ordeal, and I have optimism for what the future holds. I've gotten so much out of it, and it's been the catalyst I needed to get my love life back on track." When it comes to reality TV, The Golden Bachelor has won over viewers with its fresh take on the classic dating show format. The show has surprised everyone and won over viewers of all ages with its portrayal of elderly candidates on a love quest. Debbie has been one of the most talked about candidates this season among the outstanding personalities. Her involvement on the tell-all episode continued her emotionally rollercoaster trip on the show, which she attributes to her genuine approach to life. A thrill ride through emotions. Nothing about Debbie's experience on The Golden Bachelor was easy. Not only did Debbie fall for the charming bachelor Gary, who was also looking for love at this point in his life, but she also had to face the history that had influenced her as she navigated her feelings for him. She won over fans with her candid account of the ups and downs of her trip. But Debbie was unprepared for the range of feelings evoked by the show's signature tell-all episode, in which participants confront one another and reflect on their experiences. Debbie said she had mixed feelings after seeing Mel on the tell-all segment. Their shared history and divergent perspectives on their connections with Gary developed into a simmering conflict as the season went on. However, Debbie came clean about a more profound feeling of vulnerability during this reunion program. She confessed that she had an emotional conflict between her admiration for Mel as a competitor and her concerns of being eliminated. A personal odyssey of reflection. It wasn't just her relationship with Mel that Debbie experienced emotional instability and bewilderment in. Debbie had made her need for something significant and enduring apparent throughout the show. Love at this point in life was not something to be hastily pursued, but neither could she afford to treat it carelessly, as any wise and experienced woman would tell you. Debbie discussed her personal, emotional journey in an unscripted segment of the Tell-All special. Looking back, she wondered if her exit from the program was a result of her own self-doubt or the lessons she had learned from her failures and heartbreaks. She confessed to feeling exposed, wondering if her insecurities had prevented her from wholeheartedly embracing the idea of falling in love with Gary. A part of her was afraid of making the same mistakes again, she said. "I've been through my fair share of pain to know that love is fragile and that it takes more torment than it's worth. My worst fear was that my history would have some bearing on my demise." The experiences Debbie had in the past served as both a teacher and a source of self-doubt. Her trust had been challenged throughout her previous marriage, as it is for many individuals who have navigated the intricacies of a long-term commitment. Nevertheless, she remained receptive to the notion of love, even when it implied risking further suffering. Struggling to reconcile her want for love with the emotional wounds from her past, she persisted in overcoming her inner anxieties and doubts. The dramatic role of Mel. While Debbie was thinking back on her life's path, she brought up her friendship with Mel. There had been some tender moments between them, but it was also obvious that tension had pervaded their stay at the house. There was more to the relationship between Mel and Debbie than just a simple rivalry. There were layers of understanding and complexity. Although they had both aimed to win Gary's love, the two ladies had also developed a friendship that, although sincere, would inevitably encounter difficulties. Rekindled emotions for Debbie were triggered by Mel's appearance at the Tell-All program. "There's this amusing aspect about the show," Debbie remarked. "When you enter, you may be seeking love, but you'll also be attempting to figure out who you are and where you fit in with everything." It didn't make the competition any easier, though Mel and I probably both knew it. Mel went through her own process of introspection, much like Debbie. Like many others, she had wondered how her history had shaped her present. Their shared experiences were similar in many respects, but what really drew the audience in was the way their personalities and perspectives differed slightly. Mel radiated an assurance that, at times, caused friction, whereas Debbie leaned more into her sensitivity. Their friendship was clearly based on mutual regard, though. While watching the Tell-All, Debbie was overcome with a storm of conflicting feelings as she laid eyes with Mel. "I held Mel in high regard," broke Debbie. "In any case, I felt apprehensive the moment I laid eyes on her. I wondered whether there was anything else I could have done. Did I fail to notice anything? Did I restrain myself too much?" Even though the two women had experienced comparable emotional ups and downs, Debbie couldn't shake the notion that her history had made her too cautious. Mel, on the other hand, appeared to have thrived on the show thanks to her extroverted personality. Because of her crippling self-doubt, Debbie couldn't help but question if she had been overly restrained and suppressed her feelings for Gary. The removal. Discussions surrounding Debbie's elimination were among the most taxing aspects of the Tell-All episode. Leaving the show was more than simply an exit for her. It was a public declaration of her vulnerabilities to an audience of millions. Debbie revealed in an honest moment that she had been afraid that her own shortcomings, especially her reluctance to let herself be loved, were a part of the reason she was returned home. It wasn't simply Gary that she thought about when she was ousted, she revealed. "Personally, I considered this. Reflecting on everything that had transpired, I realized how much I had repressed, and I pondered whether that was the cause of my inability to proceed forward. Assuming I was unable to progress because of the barriers I had built up inside myself emotionally." One moving scene from Tell-All was Debbie realizing she had emotional barriers of her own. It showed how she had grown as a person throughout the season as well as her vulnerabilities. She came to realize that being open to oneself is sometimes more necessary for love than being open to other people. In spite of her conflicted feelings, Debbie expressed her gratitude for the experience as she looked forward to the future and remembered Mel. "No matter how early I left the event, I still feel like I've learned a lot about who I am," she remarked. "The focus of this trip was never solely about Gary. I was also a part of it. Plus, I'm pleased with my progress."